Yeah, listen, go ahead.
Malone, is that
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
Um,
There were two Malones in the top 10.
Moses.
Moses Malone, yeah, Mrs. Pye. 9. Any more? We're showing our age here.
Let's see.
Jabbar 1, Malone Carl 2, Kobe Bryant 3, Michael Jordan 4, Wilt Chamberlain 5, Dirk Nowitzki 6, LeBron James 7, Shaquille O'Neal 8, Moses Malone 9, who's 10?
Oh gosh.
He was responsible for stopping UCLA's 88-game winning streak in NCAA basketball. He played for Houston, University of Houston.
Oh.
Who was it?
Oh,
Played for the Baltimore Bullets in the NBA.
Oh God.
Huh? Elvin Hayes. You really know that? You know who he was? Yeah. All right, real quick like for you that care. 11, Hakeem Olajuwon.
Okay.
12, Oscar Robertson. 13, Dominique Wilkins, who, by the way, 2 years ago, the kids, when they went to D.C., saw in person. He was at the game. 14, Tim Duncan. 15, Paul Pierce. 16, John Havlicek. 17, Kevin Garnett. 18, Alex English. 19, Reggie Miller. 20, the logo. The logo. Who's the logo? Jerry West. He's the NBA logo. He's at 20. Carmelo Anthony, 21. Patrick Ewing, 22. Vince Carter, 23. Ray Allen, 24. And the answer is 25. Who's the answer? Whose nickname was the answer? Allen Iverson. Yeah. Now, anyway, for what it's worth, kiddos, you've learned that today in AP US History. All right, thank you, Mrs.
That's what you
Pike.
always wanted to hear.
Yeah. March, here's a story for you. March 23rd. That lost H-bomb that we talked about was found by Navy diver Carl Brashear. Ding, 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 anybody? Not yet? Carl Brashear found that lost H-bomb off the coast of Spain. It was intact, no radiation leak. Now I just want you to listen. You don't have to write anything else down, but I want you to listen and see if this rings a bell. During the recovery operations, after he recovered the H-bomb, a line used for towing the bomb from the bottom of the ocean broke loose, causing a pipe to strike the leg of Brashear, who had since been brought to the surface and had changed back into his military uniform. Brashear's left leg, just below the knee, was nearly sheared completely off, and he was evacuated to an Air Force base in Spain and then to a naval hospital in Virginia. Anybody, is it ringing a bell yet? Okay, we'll see, maybe it won't. Brashear convinced his doctors to amputate his leg so he could recover and train because he always wanted to be a master Navy diver. So he continued to train with a prosthetic leg. Okay, now, after much hard work, determination, and opposition by top officers in the Navy who would rather have seen him retired, Brashear was reinstated. He retired from the Navy in 1979 as a Master Chief Petty Officer and Master Diver. He died of respiratory failure in Virginia on July 25th, 2006 at the age of 76. He was African American, struggled to get in the diving program from the start because he was discriminated against because he was black. Later went on to make a movie of his story called Men of Honor, starring Cuban Gooding Jr. Anybody seen that movie? Huh? Okay, well again, I always tell you, if you're bored on a Saturday night and want to see a great story and a true story that talks about discrimination and perseverance, Men of Honor is your ticket. Okay? Let me know if you see it. All right, moving on. April. This fella right here, Jack Nicklaus, became the first golfer to win the Masters Golf Tournament 2 years in a row. On April 11th, 1966, Jack Nicklaus becomes the first golfer in American history to win 2 consecutive Masters Golf Championships. That's a big one, if you win the Masters. What do you get, Caitlin, if you win that? You get a beautiful green jacket, which is a big symbolic thing in sports about winning the Masters. Okay, it's a big time. Masters Golf Championship. Where's it played? Augusta, Georgia. That used to be a segregated golf course, by the way. Anyway, not now anymore, obviously. But Jack Nicklaus, who will turn out to be one of the greatest golfers in the sport, wins his 2nd consecutive Masters Golf Tournament on April 11th. In May 28th, now you will see this later when we get into the Vietnam War. On May 28th of 1966, approximately 350,000 students that were attending the University of Chicago, and probably some that weren't, stormed the administrative offices and took them over in protest of the college's support of the selective service. You'll see more of that later. I'll show you a really good example of that later. May 28, 1966, approximately 350,000 students seized control of the administrative offices at the University of Chicago to protest the school's cooperation with the selective service. Anybody know what the selective service is? It's the pre-draft. Everybody that turns 18 years old, males, I'm not sure if females have to do it now, I don't think so, but males, when you turn 18, you're supposed to go to the post office and register for the selective service, which means if we ever had a draft, you would be in the pool. Okay? Well, one of the places you could do that is the post office. One of the places you could do that was the University of Chicago. Well, because of all the rampage about the Vietnam War, 350,000 students took over the administrative offices at the University of Chicago to protest, which led to great violence and an interesting story that you will hear later. So this is the precursor to the story you'll get later. Here's one for you. I'm going to see if you get this one. June 13th, 1966. The United States Supreme Court ruled 5-4 in the rape case of Ernesto Miranda. On June 13, 1966, the Supreme Court ruled 5-4 in the case of convicted rapist Ernesto Miranda. They ruled 5-4, so they either ruled in favor of him or against him, right? In this case, they ruled in favor of him. Why? They weren't the Miranda rights yet. The court ruled that confessions are invalid if they're obtained before a suspect has been informed of their constitutional rights. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you. Do you understand these rights? Didn't read the guy's rights. It became such a famous case, they named the rights after the guy. Because what are they called now? The Miranda rights. So there you go. See, it's pretty cool. So June 13, 1966, the Supreme Court ruled 5-4 in the case of convicted rapist Ernesto Miranda. They ruled in Miranda's favor because it stated that confessions are invalid if obtained before a suspect has been informed of their constitutional rights. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney, etc. They now are known because of that ruling as the Miranda warning or the Miranda rights. All right, great. This is a sick one here. July 19th, kind of sums up the 60s a little bit. July 19th, 1966. A fellow by the name of Richard F. Speck, a 24-year-old ex-convict, was identified as the mass murderer of 8 student nurses in Chicago. On July 19, 1966, Richard F. Speck, a 24-year-old ex-convict, was identified as the mass murderer of 8 student nurses in Chicago. he was identified by a Filipino exchange student by the name of Corazon Amerso, and she was the only survivor of his brutal attack. Okay? So, Speck was identified by a Filipino exchange student by the name of Corazon Amerso, who was the only survival of the brutal assault. You don't have to write down anymore, you just have to listen, okay, from this point on. Now, the murderous assault took place in a dormitory for the hospital the women worked at. They were slashed and stabbed to death by Mr. Speck. Miss Amerso escaped death by rolling under a bed and then making her way to a window ledge where she began screaming, "They are all dead, they are all dead, my friends are all dead. Oh God, I'm the only one alive." Crazy story. It even got worse the next month in August. So I'll tell you another weird thing that happened in August of 1966. The 60s were an interesting decade as far as violence. August 1st, 1966. A fellow by the name of Charles Whitman, who was an architectural student at the University of Texas, climbed his way to the top of the 28-story clock tower at the University of Texas in Austin. On August 1st, 1966, Charles Whitman, an architectural honors student, made his way to the top of the 28-story clock tower on the campus of the University of Texas. With him, he carried several rifles, several handguns, and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. To the top of that 28-story clock tower, Charles Whitman carries several rifles, several handguns, and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. On his way up, he encountered a man and his wife and their small boy. He shot and killed the woman and the boy, and the man managed to escape. So as he's taking these guns and ammunition to the top of the 28-story clock tower at the University of Austin, he confronts a man and his wife and their small boy. Whitman shoots and kills the woman and the boy. The man happens to escape. What do you think he does when he gets on top of that 28-story tower, Brady? The 25-year-old ex-Marine opens fire on the people below on campus. Once in position on the clock tower, the 25-year-old ex-Marine opens fire on campus. That reminds me of this thing in Las Vegas. From that tower, he killed 12 people and wounded 31 others. He killed 12 people and wounded 31 others. "96 minutes after he fired the first shot, Whitman was killed by police." 96 minutes after he fired the first shot, Whitman was killed by police. Prior to his arrival at the University of Texas that morning, he had already killed his mother and his wife. Prior to ever arriving at the University of Texas campus that morning, he had already killed his mother and his wife. The autopsy that followed his death revealed that he was suffering from a brain tumor. And what we're going to do the rest of today and tomorrow is show you this world-famous story called The Texas Sniper, which made the cover of Life magazine on August 12, 1966. The Texas Sniper. Okay, so we're going to watch that the rest of the period and tomorrow. So, Kellyanna, my dear, if you could get the lights and stuff, I would appreciate it.